They call it a new beginning, the Young Progressive Party's manifesto, and it's based on the cardinals of power, security and the economy, a vision that the party says will help Nigeria in its hour of need as the country continues to drift economically, politically and socially. It talks rather apocalyptically about the wasted decades of a shattered, visionless economy that's had no structure or direction, and how the YPP plans to reverse all that with its own utopian vision that upsets the old order and proclaims, even demands, a new world. Take electricity, for example. It proposes a mixed solution with the introduction of renewables using the sun and the wind to augment hydropower. And on security, there's talk of decentralization and technology-driven methodology for the police, retooling and repositioning of the army and the establishment of a coast guard, as well as root and branch reforms in the Navy and Air Force. And then there's the economy, and a drive that targets a $1 trillion expansion. So beyond looking nice and glossy on paper and online, how is all this going to work? Well, for an assessment of that manifesto, I'm joined now in the studio by the presidential candidate of the Young Progressive Party, or YPP, Prince Malik Ibrahim, who's looking rather young this evening, isn't he?
Thank you. YPP.
I suppose. I mean, you're living up to the name.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you very much indeed for coming in. Someone described your manifesto, I think one of your people, as a people's manifesto. Would you agree with that description?
I agree. In the onset of getting this right, we actually did a lot of homework trying to understand what Nigerians need and what are the issues of the day. And these issues are past the day now, they're into the twilight of life. And we believe that we found three cardinal areas in which Nigeria could improve and can improve under a YPP-led Malik Ibrahim administration.
Well, we're going to look at that in a minute, but I wonder how much you took into account and incorporated suggestions from ordinary Nigerians into that manifesto? Or was it created by sort of experts and intellectuals sitting in boardrooms in expensive hotels?
No, we actually have an experience of all three elements. I'm intrinsically involved in all three. And over the last decade, I've spent a lot of time trying to understand why we can't get it right. And in even attempting to help get it right, I realized that we're dealing with traditionally old, more staid, more unadventurous leadership that does not have the vision that a new Nigeria needs to have. And that's why the new beginning has been slotted in. We really need to reset Nigeria by going back to what we have to do to keep this incredible country alive and working well.
But there's a lot of ambitious proposals there, aren't there? I mean, take electricity, for instance. You talk not just about increasing the existing capacity of the national grid, but also mixing it with renewables, including sun, wind, hydro. But you also rather ambitiously, and some would say unrealistically, talk about e-mobility and integrating electric buses into Nigeria's national and state transportation systems that don't even exist at the moment. How are you going to do all that?
Well, you know, one of the incredible opportunities I've had is I've led an agency at the United Nations, and I've done just that. This isn't theory. This isn't going to a country to figure it out. This is actually science fact. We can build these vehicles here. There's a gentleman in Borno State building electric buses as we are right now. And this needs to be part of the thinking, because if you understand where we are, you see fuel queues, you see all this stuff, and we're blessed with sunlight. Electrifying vehicles and giving free transportation even to the public while you're trying to get this economy to move is a very simple task.
And how are you going to electrify vehicles when you haven't got electricity?
And that's the point. As I said, one of the crazy things about where we are today in the world is that renewable energy can do that and do it so fast. We put in, for example, and I keep saying this, 5 megawatts in 3 months in one place. If we did that in all 36 states, we would have a tremendous amount. And this is not, again, science fiction. You can see it, you can you cannot hear it
Right.
because there's no generator.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but how much would 5 megawatts be able to power? Would it power a city? Would it power a village?
Well,
I mean, I'm trying to see, because you said you put 5 megawatts.
Yes.
What is that likely to run? A big hotel like the Hilton
No,
Hotel
actually,
or
it's
something?
5 megawatts of continuous power. And if you understand this from the grid, the national grid, as
Right.
it is, Yola, at the end of the grid, where this project that I did is got 7 megawatts. We put 80% of that on one place, not using the national grid. And you can do that in 3 months, and that's just because we have a client. If we took this as a national plan, some kind of a Marshall Plan to build power, this is not something we need to go to China to build. We can build it here in Nigeria, and we've done it, and we're doing it. So the energy mix is realistic. It's just some people are just afraid of allowing that to happen, and we've done that in the private sector, and we can do that to really enhance not just the grid, but the multiplier effect for the whole country with regards to jobs, industry improving, security improving. Without power, we're in the darkness, we're in the Stone Age, and
But what
that's where
about
we
the
are.
cost, though?
Well, the natural resource for this is actually found in Abuja, for example, and in other states, lithium. It's the new gold. We can beneficiate that. We're doing it already. And I said, I'm one of the 4 companies in the world that's doing this. I don't need the income drive from that, but I need my country to be strong from that. And I believe that technological know-how can really take Nigeria, not just as a product we use locally, but we can export this along the African coast for now, and Africa in general in the very, very short term.
Well, I mean, as I said, it sounds very interesting listening to you talk about it, but it also sounds terribly glib. I mean, it sounds, enormously ambitious.
Well, it was enormously ambitious when we went from hardline phones to cell phones. And Nigeria is one of the biggest. We accepted that technology. It was, where's the connection coming from? But technology did that. We should not be afraid to make that leap. We can actually go from 0 to hero. There's no legacy infrastructure for power. What we've had is what we've had since 1960. I dare say that the ability to do this if you can't see it, you can't see it. And if you've done it, you can implement it. And most people are afraid because they've never done it. And I'm proud to say, as a Nigerian, that one of the very few people in the world, very few Africans, has ever done this and is doing it and is producing this in 18 countries right now, and not just in African countries, majority in the West. So Nigeria can do this, and we can take that leap very, very quickly.
And you said you did it in 3 months.
Yes, putting power into Adama was in 3 months.
But what about maintenance? What about training of staff? I mean, these are all things that you're going to have in place,
Yes.
almost like a value chain, in order for it to remain effective.
The great part of our business is that there are no moving parts in what we produce. Solar is stagnant. Even the wind is stagnant. There's nothing there you need to do. If it blows, it turns. If the sun comes out, you generate power. Our lithium batteries are not like generators. They're static, and they're good for 12 years. And you don't need to do anything to them. You can monitor them. This is simple technology that allows us to do that imaginary step, but actually do it functionally. But as I said, if you've never done it before, everybody else in this race is saying it can't be done. Well, Einstein said a lot of things couldn't be done. There are a lot of individuals that people called mad, but they achieved this. I've achieved it elsewhere, and I know I'm the kind of person that Nigeria needs right now to get that energy mix right. In 2014 and 2015, the government went to that way. In 2016, 14 contracts were signed to put solar. That was a brave move, but they never took the next step, which is to implement it. A lot of people lost a lot of money, and the country lost a benefit of solar energy. And I'm really convinced that you need to be bold. You need to be a visionary leader for the next Nigeria, the new Nigeria, the new Nigerian party which YPP is representing. Brings everybody together, regardless of what party you're in. We need to move Nigeria forward, and I just believe that I have the right plan to do that.
Okay, well, let's turn to security. There's a lot there as well. I mean, you're talking not just about root and branch reforms in the police, the army, the navy, the air force. You're also talking about creating a coast guard. And it all sounds like it'll be an impossibly costly exercise, not to mention time-consuming.
If you think of all the wastages that we've had, if you think of all the things that we're doing that do not produce anything, Nigeria can achieve this very quickly. If you look at our budget that's just been released, 70% of that budget is to fund government alone. We should reduce the size of government immediately.
Yeah, but if you reduce the size of government, that means you're going to have to fire a lot of people. What are you going to do with this?
But you retrain them, you reskill them. You know, what technology does is you still need human beings behind those desktops. You need people who are analysts. There's a new dimension out there. The civil service is not geared to just do, this work in the old-fashioned way. There is modernity to this. We're talking about currency changes. There are people who have to do this. Digital transformation, taking things from analog to digital. There's a new economy out there, and it's not just because we're trying to make money. You're trying to get the country moving again. We need to modernize. We're going back in time rather than going forward and accepting modernity. We did this in the past. As I said, we went from a tele-density of 1 million to over 200 million tele-density because there was a president that was bold enough to say, we're making that move. We're about to do that again.
Right, but what will be your quick wins when it comes to security, given that insecurity is a colossal problem right now, right at this moment?
The cardinal foundation is power. If you look at any crime movie or anything that's going on, or an attempt of robbery anywhere in the world, CCTV cameras are working. They don't work in Nigeria because there's no power. If you cannot get that power right, then your CCTV cameras don't work. We've got a satellite in space that's sitting up there doing absolutely nothing. NACHCOM-SAT, again, an Obasanjo move, there was no continuity. That satellite was one of the first satellites that found Hurricane Katrina when it happened. We've left it there doing nothing. That could even give everybody in Nigeria very cheap internet connectivity. But again, if you cannot see it,
basically.
We are visionless. Yeah. And everybody that comes into positions where they should use that vision is more likely to look at, well, what can I make for myself rather than what can I make for Nigeria?
Well, that's a good point that you raise about that satellite, because I was talking to somebody the other day and they were extremely concerned about the fact that it's just sitting there. What would you do with it?
Well, first of all, we have such a young, able Nigerian youth that is dying to be part of this international world. I would give free internet. I think sitting there doing nothing, I would definitely be able to push internet everywhere in this country. I think the footprint of this satellite is 98% of the African continent. We could be a provider generating a tremendous amount of income from Nigeria if they actually knew what to do with that satellite. We have productivity in this country that should be at a level that is close to Western, if not at par with some countries.
But there is a space agency in Nigeria.
Yes, it's more to use it for military sense, but if you understand what that should be doing, it should be identifying where the criminals are, border incursion, looking for identifying those that will do us harm. But we're not using it to our full ability. We're only providing certain agencies. I mean, we have a satellite. We're one of the few countries in the world that has a 4-beam satellite that can do pretty much we can even track a package, a box of cigarettes from California.
But in fairness to them, though, and I'm not trying to defend them at all, in fairness to them, one of the problems with that satellite was that they placed it in the wrong place.
Well, the first one
they took up the position of Turkey.
Yes.
You see what I mean? And they got into a big sort of fight with whether or not it was supposed to be functioning from there, whether it was possible to move it somewhere else, and all the rest of it.
But it's working. And, here's the fundamental problem with things that we do for this country. They don't generate income. NACHCOM-SAT should be one of the big wage earners for the Nigerian economy. But it's sitting there and it just waits for the budget to come, and it takes that budget and it uses it, but it's not commercially driven. Under this YPP manifesto that we put together, it's to push that 1 trillion economy by using these assets. We don't have to redefine anything. We just have to find somebody who knows what it is that's up there, that's continuity, and then turn that into something that creates value for Nigerians. And there are jobs there. There are jobs for every Nigerian there.
Well, now that you've talked about commerce and the economy, let's talk about the all-important economy. Your manifesto talks about an economic drive that targets a $1 trillion economy.
Absolutely.
That would be turning the Nigerian economy into something like an 800 trillion naira economy. Is that within a first term period, or when?
Well, in the first term, I think we will have we have laid all the fundamental elements that need to be put in play. And if you look at it, everybody in Nigeria will understand what I'm talking about. Because you're going to be insular in one or two of these elements. Yes, we're oil and gas. Our raw materials, unbelievable. But we haven't found a way to beneficiate those to make something. We're turning what we have into just a raw material that goes out. Jobs are created when we take gold and turn it into jewelry. When we take raw diamonds and turn them into jewelry. When we take lithium and turn it into lithium ion. When we take one of our fantastic assets, which is the Nigerian people, and Afrobeat and Nollywood and Kannywood, and we turn those into industries where there should be a Grammy type awards show in Nigeria every year. There should be music festivals. That's what other economies are enjoying. And our talented young men and women are enjoying this without government intervention. But let's have government aid, not government intervention. So create a system where they can benefit from it, and then the country enjoys that. And it brings pride, it brings that sense of patriotism that we're sadly lacking.
I can see a lot of young people getting quite excited with what you're talking about when you talk about Nollywood and the music industry and all the rest of it, and turning them as they are, but into more profitable.
Absolutely.
And profitability that's more measurable. What about the correlation, for example, between unemployment, education, and insecurity? Because I'm sure you've realized that you can't have unemployed young people and not have high crime and violence. Because, I mean, there are millions of young unemployed Nigerians, particularly in the north.
Well, even within that sphere of influence where the youth are sitting there, it was one of the reasons why I joined YPP. That why was fundamental to my thinking. How do you get them to buy into government? How do you get these young people to look at themselves as Nigerians? They are good at certain things. If you give, I said the idle person is the playground of the devil, and that mind is going to be doing things that are unconscionable. You give him value for his life, and he'll stop all those things. It's an added element to take insecurity and own it as a generator of wealth, of a self-being, of some value to yourself. And I know this because I've seen this happen in other countries where you're going to a university in the States or in England, it's rah, rah, rah for university and the alumni is strong. We need to get them rah, rah, rah for Nigeria and get this country stronger by creating jobs. And those jobs are not necessarily the things that everyone's saying, well, clean the streets, or what are we doing with the unemployed in the streets? That doesn't compute in my head. We have things that can be done. Agriculture is there, and everyone's saying, oh, it's backbreaking work. There's modernity in agriculture that can change the whole value chain from sustenance to a cash crop. When you've got that cash coming in, you're not worried about sustenance. You can buy things. The value chain is strong. And unless you've done it, you cannot go in. If somebody tells you that they're going to promise you jobs, have they ever created jobs in their life? Have they ever balanced the budget? Because if they haven't, when they get into office, they'll never balance the budget. And that's why I create this nomenclature as the CEO of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We need to get Nigeria moving again, and not putting Babariga on and promising all kinds of things. You need to roll up your sleeves and get that green, white, green working again, and that's what I intend to do.
And in your manifesto, which I'm looking at now, you talk about government and its organization. That's apparently an important part of what you're trying to do. Tell us how you would reform the framework of government and all the rest of it.
Well, I think that, again, as I said, the size of government is too big. We're doing things in a very slow pace. We're not nimble enough. We're not reacting. In your earlier part of your show, you talked about the Naira and that slow pace in which it should have been changed 8 years ago, or in 8 years instead of 20 years. I'll have gone even a step more. I'll have taken a zero off that currency, getting that sense of faith. When Ghana did this, Kenya did this. I would have taken that 1,000 Naira and turned it into 100 Naira. That would have taken a zero off our 750 to the dollar. I would have given confidence to people. Now exchange rate is 75. You get that sense, get Nigeria driving again. It's a missed opportunity if we don't do that, because we've seen our neighboring countries do it, and the success, what the city did, we understood what that was. It was almost a psychological game, and we need to get Nigeria Nigerians excited about our country again. And I think this same old leadership, a movement to hold the wealth of Nigeria within a few people, those days are gone. We need a very active, empathetic leader that says, you know what, this country belongs to all of us. And how I'm going to get it done is not because I have a creation around me, an old school for the last 30 years. Look, things like restitutional refund of monies that are stolen from this country. I'm not necessarily going to chase people. I want to bring them to bring their money back and put that money back to work in Nigeria. There's no point that money sitting in England. Revenue restitution is key to bring that ill-gotten wealth back home. And then you drive the economy using empathy, vision. We're missing these things, and these are fundamentals. And people say it's utopian. You know, this country has always been there for other people, whether it's South Africa or Liberia or Sierra Leone or Sudan, but we're not there for ourselves. And I believe that the kind of leadership I want is about looking inwards, Nigeria for Nigerians, creating a better, stronger, more empathetic Nigerian type of leadership. And governance is the key to that. Why are we, putting pressure on our people when we should be alleviating that pressure? And look at what's happening with the floods. 40 years ago, we should have built a dam.
Yeah, but I was going to ask you, have you actually been to empathize with those flood victims?
I'm in Kogi State. We suffered this tremendously. We lost a lot of livestock. Our farms were devastated, a lot loss of life, and my heart goes out to the people who lost their lives there. But this is part of where we're not thinking. By the time this goes away, the next government is going to forget it as a problem.
Right.
We need to fix those elements that are really, you don't need vision. They started building the dam. And by the way, that dam will produce 300 megawatts of power for the Northeast. We failed Nigerians, or I say, the last leaderships over the last 30 years have failed Nigerians. A YPP-led Ibrahim administration is going to look at those empathetic steps, fix the economy by using the tools that are there. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have to apply them differently and bring Nigeria back to work.
We've got less than a minute or so left. Looking at that manifesto, it seems on one level pretty stark, and it's almost like a warning that Nigeria has to change or else.
We are at the precipice of disaster, and we're going to, if we let the same old crowd, we're going to have monumental problems. We're not even understanding what that's going to be like. We need a paradigm shift. We need people who know what they know and bring that to the fore and get Nigeria moving again. 216 million people can't find their way to Europe. We need to fix it now. We need to fix it here. And we need someone who's done things that Nigeria can accept. And that only comes by talking to young people, not flaunting wealth, but getting them that confidence that they also can be wealthy and Nigeria is their country. And as I said, this is the country we have. It's the only one I have. And I just pray that God gives us that vision to find the right kind of leadership.
Very interesting talking with you. Prince Malik Ibrahim is the presidential candidate of the Young Progressive Party. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.